This week on Vaticano, we celebrate the legacy of Pope Benedict XVI. Through the words of those who knew him most closely, we trace how his early writings foresaw the path the Church would take in the years ahead. We sit down with Father Roberto Regoli, the newly appointed president of the Ratzinger Foundation, dedicated to promoting theological knowledge and research, and visit the first Italian exhibition on the German Pope, gathering both the public and private dimensions of Benedict XVI. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. Nearly 5 centuries after the visit of Paul III in 1538, Pope Leo XIV became the first pope of the modern era to undertake an apostolic visit to Monaco. Marking his first papal trip to a European country, the Holy Father arrived in the microstate by helicopter in the morning of March the 28th for a full day of events and encounters. The Pope was welcomed by Prince Albert II and taken to the Prince's palace to the sound of church bells, cheering faithful and band music. For the small city-state with Europe's longest ruling royal family, the day marked a historic moment destined to be written into its national story. The program began with a courtesy visit to Prince Albert II at the Prince's palace, where he received a formal welcome by the princely family, bishops, and cardinals. Despite no papal visit in centuries, Monaco remains the last nation in Europe where Catholicism is the official state religion, which Pope Leo didn't hesitate to commend. Addressing the faithful from the balcony of the palace, Pope Leo reaffirmed the enduring bond between the world's 2 smallest states and highlighted that in a wounded world, small states can carry a voice greater than themselves.
The gift of smallness and a living spiritual heritage invite you to put your prosperity at the service of law and justice, especially at a historical moment when the display of power and the logic of oppression are harming the world and jeopardizing peace. As you know, in the Bible, it is the little ones who make history.
As the Pope made his way through the Principality, the streets filled with cheering faithful. He then encountered the Catholic community at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception in the heart of Monaco for the celebration of midday prayer. Pope Leo shared a reflection on how the Church is called to be an advocate, committed to the proclamation of the gospel in defense of every human being and the integral development of the human person.
Annoncer l'évangile de la vie, de l'espérance et de l'amour.
Proclaim the gospel of life, hope, and love. Bring the light of the gospel to everyone so that the life of every man and woman may be defended and promoted from conception until natural death. Offer new pathways capable of stemming the tide of secularism, which risks reducing humanity to individualism and basing the social life on the production of wealth.
Sur la production des richesses.
The timing of his message was especially significant for the Principality. In November of 2025, Prince Albert declined to promulgate an abortion law that would have broadened the grounds for terminating a pregnancy within the Principality. Through the city-state, the Pope-mobile carried the Pope to his next stop. By around midday, thousands of Monegasque young people were gathered in front of the Church of Saint Devota for an encounter with Pope Leo. Quoting St. Augustine, Pope Leo urged Monaco's young people to pour themselves out completely for the Lord and for others, to find true joy and meaning in their lives.
Aime, fais ce que tu veux.
Love and do what you will. In other words, love is a free gift to God and to others. Stay close and do not walk away. Even when we cannot solve every problem or resolve every difficulty, stay nearby with love and faith.
Reste avec amour et avec foi.
4 young residents of the microstate had been chosen to ask Pope Leo a question. Ethan, a 25-year-old man who was baptized this Easter, like many others across the world, asked about concrete ways of witnessing to the gospel in their daily lives.
How can we prepare ourselves spiritually to receive the eternal love of God through the Holy Spirit in the sacrament of baptism? And how can we, after this, bear daily witness to this love that has transformed our life?
Les paroles.
Words and deeds of witness and hope cannot be improvised. They are not the fruit of our own efforts, but come from a profound relationship with God, in which we first find the fundamental answers to life. If we are open and ready to respond to God's grace, thus making this relationship of love a shared gift, we can trust that the precise words as well as the strength needed to act will come at the right time.
Au moment opportun.
Before returning home to the Vatican, the Pope ended his trip with the celebration of Holy Mass at the Louis II Stadium. In his homily, the Holy Father urged everyone not to grow accustomed to the clamor of weapons and images of war, and reminded all that peace is not merely a balance of power, but the work of purified hearts. And the Church in Monaco, Pope Leo stressed, is called to bear witness to living in peace with God's blessing.
L'Église à Monaco est appelée à
The Church in Monaco is called to bear witness to living in peace and with God's blessing. Therefore, dear friends, bring happiness to others through your faith by manifesting authentic joy, which is not won through a wager, but shared through charity. God's love is the source of this joy.
et l'amour de Dieu.
In a few moments, we'll be back to discover Cardinal Ratzinger's prophecy for the Church.
Today, having a clear faith based on the creed of the Church is often labeled as fundamentalism, whereas relativism, that is, letting oneself be tossed here and there, carried about by every wind of doctrine, seems the only attitude that can cope with modern times. We are building a dictatorship of relativism that does not recognize anything as definitive, and whose ultimate goal consists solely of one's own ego and desires.
When Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger spoke these words, he didn't know that his life would change dramatically the very next day. On April the 18th, 2005, he celebrated Holy Mass to open the conclave. The next day, he was elected Pope. He took the name Benedict XVI. More than 20 years later, his warning about the dictatorship of relativism seems to have already become a reality in Western society. Yet Pope Benedict's prophetic gift had already become evident much earlier.
When you read the text Ratzinger wrote in the 1960s and 1970s, you can't help but notice his analytical gift, a kind of precision that is almost frightening.
Das Prophetentum ist ja
Being a prophet isn't necessarily a pleasant experience. Anyone who reads the Old Testament will see that most prophets haven't had an easy life. Quite the opposite, in fact. Ratzinger not only possessed analytical gifts, but was also deeply rooted in faith. By gauging and evaluating the trends of the times, he foresaw many things and recognized the long-term consequences they would have.
welche Folgen das hat auf die Dauer.
Ihr ehemaliger Chef, Kardinal Ratzinger, der hat schon Ende der 1960er
In the late 1960s, Cardinal Ratzinger wrote, and I quote, We have no need of a church that celebrates a cult of action in political prayers. It is utterly superfluous. Therefore, it will destroy itself.
Und sie wird daher ganz von selbst untergehen.
Kardinal Ratzinger, aber auch Papst Benedikt,
Cardinal Ratzinger, Pope Benedict, often spoke of how it is not first and foremost important that I do this or that, but rather that I first let God into my life and then, out of faith, do the things I have to do. That changes everything. That's why I share your opinion, your critical remarks.
Worte oder ihre, wie soll ich mal sagen, einfach
I was just quoting Ratzinger.
aber ihre Auffassung, dass tatsächlich
Yes, I share that view, and that is what is so prophetic about Ratzinger, that, unfortunately, this has become more and more of a reality in recent years. Ratzinger issued warnings, or rather, he made suggestions and took the initiative. However, he was very often simply blocked for a variety of reasons, especially during his time as Pope.
und aus verschiedenen und verschiedensten Gründen, auch und gerade in der Zeit als Papst.
Other friends and former companions of the German Pope, such as Swiss Cardinal Kurt Koch, have also found that history has proven Ratzinger right on many issues.
Hat sehr viele Probleme vorausgesehen.
He foresaw many problems we have today. For example, back in the 1970s he wrote, "The battle for humanity is being fought today through the battle for family." That was very prophetic. That is exactly what happened. But his theology offers us new perspective and answers to today's greatest challenges as well.
Antworten auch auf die großen Herausforderungen von heute.
When people think of Pope Benedict today, many feel that he's not appreciated enough.
Oh, there are several of his works that remain. They are surely reread in the next years to come. And there is his great testimony, his life, as he was a person who believed deeply in God and who tried to do the will of God in all the different circumstances that he did not look for, but that were given to him.
I think his legacy is a deep theology that shows us that reason and faith are not opposed to each other, and that our intellect, our brain, our head, our heart, our soul, that they all belong together, and that we should search for the Lord and that we search for Jesus in all of this.
Ich glaube tatsächlich, dass wir
I truly believe that we will reach the point where he will be declared a doctor of the church, and I hope so too.
Bei EWTN haben sie es zuerst.
You heard it here first on EWTN.
Joseph Ratzinger, Pope Benedict XVI, never was a pessimist. Even though he had foreseen most of the challenges the Church is facing today, he also saw the opportunities. In 1969, Joseph Ratzinger wrote, "The future of the Church, once again, as always, will be reshaped by the saints, by men, that is, whose minds probe deeper than the slogans of the day, who see more than others see, because their lives embrace a wider reality."
Und für Papst Benedikt, für Joseph Ratzinger war
For Pope Benedict, for Joseph Ratzinger, the very fact of holiness, that there were people who lived like saints, was always the best proof of the truth of the gospel. Not theological conclusions, not logical arguments, no matter how clever, but rather faith lived out and embodied in a person. That was what mattered most to him and served as his model. The point is that we must not lose either our faith or our courage, and that we must truly believe in God's providence.
der Vorsehung Gottes zu glauben.
When Benedict XVI stepped down in 2013, few anticipated the intellectual movement his legacy would inspire. The Ratzinger Foundation has since grown into a vibrant global platform where thought, faith, and beauty converge. Each year, its prize puts the spotlight on extraordinary figures: theologians, philosophers, artists, drawn from every corner of the world and every Christian tradition, recognizing those who devote themselves to exploring the deepest questions of the human spirit. Following Father Federico Lombardi's decade-long tenure, newly appointed President Father Roberto Reguli sat down with EWTN Chief Global Officer Andreas Thonhauser to discuss the influence Pope Benedict XVI had in his life and his vision for the Foundation's future.
Could you explain to us a little bit the scope of the work of the Ratzinger Foundation?
As a foundation, we can't work alone. It's impossible in our world to be alone. So we are building an important network with other Catholic institutions, universities, foundations, not only Catholic, but also other cultural visions, but we have a common vision to support the humanity, human dignity, but also, I repeat, the first goal is a theology.
You are a historian yourself. You teach at the Gregorian University in contemporary church history. Maybe also from that point of view, how did Pope Benedict XVI impact the church?
Pope Benedict XVI was a protagonist of the church of his time. As a young scholar, as Archbishop, Cardinal, and Pope, and also as Emeritus Pope. As a young scholar, he has a vision of the future of the Church. He was able to understand the crisis of the Church, and also he was able to see the future of the Church not only about a crisis, but also he was able to say to other people what was a possible way to go beyond the crisis. Ratzinger is not a presence in a museum, is not a point of archaeology, but with his ideas, with his thought, is really present in our time.
What is your vision for the Ratzinger Foundation?
This year we start the centenary, but the big feast is next year, 2027. For us, it's important to remember Ratzinger, his thought, but more and more to help to give a contribution to theological debates about the point of our time. So, two goals. For intellectual world, it's a very academic work for the foundation. But also for us, it's very important to give a contribution for new generations.
So not only to retreat behind the own walls of the church, maybe, but really to go out into society.
It's necessary because the church has a word to say to the society. We can't stay also in our house. We need to be in confrontation, to have in relation with other part of the society.
What could we have learned from somebody like Pope Benedict in the face of those crises that we're facing?
The big difference between church and the societies for Ratzinger is the holiness of the church as a gift of the God. This difference is present in the life of the saints, Saint Francis, Saint Ignatius, and other saints. So the contribution in the crisis of the society, the contribution of the church is to be holy. The future is not a short time, 70, 80 years, 90 years, but it's the eternity. If we have this vision of the eternity in front of us, maybe we can decide better about our present world, because the vision is large and we can work better.
Wonderful, thank you.
We'll be back shortly with the first Italian exhibition on Pope Benedict XVI. April of 2027, 100 years will have passed since the birth of Pope Benedict XVI, Joseph Ratzinger. The Associazione Eventi di Pordenone, together with the Vatican Ratzinger Foundation, wanted to launch this year of celebrations with an exhibition titled Remembering Benedict XVI, towards the centenary of his birth, a tribute exhibition dedicated to the German pontiff, tracing the life and work of the theologian who has most profoundly shaped the contemporary church.
Abbiamo voluto ospitare questa mostra che ci prepara un po' a...
We wanted to host this exhibition, which prepares us for the great celebrations and major events that will take place across Europe in honor of Benedict XVI. We were the first. We wanted to open this season with the first exhibition dedicated to Benedict XVI, an exhibition that tells the story of the private Benedict XVI, the one we perhaps never saw or knew, objects that belonged to him personally, that he carried with him through his various moves, first in the cardinal's residences, then in the papal apartments, and finally at Mater Ecclesia, his last home. This is an exhibition that gives us a more personal, more intimate image of Benedict XVI. It is, in a way, like stepping into his rooms.
An opportunity for visitors to draw closer to the figure of this pontiff, someone they may have only ever seen from a distance, and to become, in a way, more intimately acquainted with him, by coming close to the objects that were part of his daily life, objects that also reveal his sensitivity, his attentiveness, and his passions.
Among the objects on display in the exhibition, one that stands out is Benedict XVI's well-known passion for animals, and cats in particular. A small ceramic cat is among the items recalling this fondness.
Perhaps the most intimate objects are the statues of Saint Joseph, the saint whose name Benedict XVI carried, Joseph, and also a Saint Augustine, who was something of a lifelong companion, as he himself recounted on many occasions, one who illuminated his path, especially as a thinker and a teacher. It is no coincidence that his episcopal and later pontifical coat of arms features a shell, which, beyond being the symbol of a pilgrim, recalls the legend of Saint Augustine encountering a child on the seashore, trying to pour the ocean into a small hole, as if to illustrate the impossibility of containing the infinite of God within the human mind. This is, in a sense, what he himself, as a theologian, as pastor, sought to do throughout his entire life, to make known to the faithful, to all who listened to him, the greatness of the evangelical message.
Through an immersive and emotional journey, the visitor is guided through the discovery of Pope Benedict XVI's works, thanks to a carefully preserved collection of personal belongings, sacred vestments, liturgical garments, photographs, and works of art.
And then there is the aspect that perhaps strikes visitors the most, the vestments, the papal garments. There is a beautiful white cassock with the red mozzetta, and also those distinctive red shoes that were so characteristic of his style, a zacchetto, a mitre, liturgical vestments. A study corner has also been created, a desk with a crucifix, books, and a signed volume, along with other objects from his everyday life, all to restore, through these objects, a sense of his person, his life.
But why was Pordenone chosen to launch these celebrations? The city in Italy's northern Friuli Venezia Giulia region has a very special bond with the German pontiff.
Pordenone is in the Friuli Venezia Giulia region, close to the Veneto. Pope Benedict made a journey to both Aquileia and Venice, and Pordenone sits right at the heart of these two cities. And by presenting this exhibition, these memories, these testimonies, we also wish to pay tribute to a pope who did so much good for our society.
A small letter, preserved within the exhibition, best illustrates this connection.
There was an occasion when the province, together with the diocese, donated a Christmas tree for St. Peter's Square. On that occasion, other trees also arrived at the Vatican, and some were sent to Mater Ecclesiae, the residence where Benedict XVI lived. This gift of trees was accompanied by a note from our bishop, And to everyone's surprise, and it truly was a surprise, the Pope Emeritus replied with a handwritten note of his own, which we have here in the exhibition. It was truly a wonderful surprise.
In mostra. Fu veramente una grande sorpresa.
L'augurio è quello di aver iniziato un percorso.
The hope is that we have set a journey in motion, that we trust that the other events, the other cities, the other gatherings that the Ratzinger Foundation will organize for this centenary of his birth will each be an opportunity to embrace this legacy, these memories of Pope Benedict, through a message that comes from Pordenone and from the Friuli Venezia Giulia region, which has been the protagonist and the first to sense, to envision this path.
È la prima a intuire questo percorso.